here. Okay, let's go to Abuja studio. When you talk about tennis in Nigeria, one name comes to mind. He's a tennis great, tennis legend. Look how this is. He played at Wimbledon in 1982 and got to the round of 16. And at the time, in 1983, was ranked number 52 in the world. I don't even think I have a Nigerian in the first 200 in the world at the moment. Because joins us now live on the show from our Abuja studio. We'll be talking about sports developments in Nigeria, and we will take the journey down to that sport, that bat and ball sport called tennis. Good morning, Duka, and welcome to Sports This Morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here. It's a pleasure.
Good to have you join us on the program. We're talking about sports development in Nigeria. You delivered a paper at the Sports Reform Committee yesterday in Abuja, and I hear you got emotional. Why did you get into that mood?
Well, it's emotional because tennis has been a blessing, and if it has been a blessing to me, it also has to be a blessing to others. And heretofore, it hasn't been a blessing to others. And on my numerous return to Nigeria, it appears it's just getting worse and worse. And that's nothing different as you've seen in various literary writings or even in the scripture where people weep because they see their people, their citizens, their colleagues in despair. And that's really how I felt. I was in despair and I was very angry. But having been angry, I think you can't do much but to move forward. I think we can find a way to move forward.
Okay, now what are the various ways you actually want the Nigerian government, so to speak, to actually move forward in sports? Because right now, you talked about the fact that athletes are not being rewarded, they are not being honored, and most of them don't really get what they need, out of the competition. So what are the ways they can actually set this rolling?
Primarily, I think the people in charge of sports in Nigeria and elsewhere really have to understand the industry of sport. Sports is twofold, so it has a two-pronged approach. The first being the athletes themselves, and the second being the administrators. The sum of the parts is not greater than the whole. And what happened many times in Nigeria, I think they begin to leave some of the parts out, and they don't get the entire demographics, the entire masses into the pool. If you don't have a large enough pool to pull from, it's very difficult to have great players or great athletes.
You're clamoring, advocating for recognition of athletes. You say welfare is very important. How important is it?
Well, it's very important because when you say welfare, upon my arrival in Nigeria, I often hear many people talk about stomach infrastructure. Welfare is a part of that. Welfare is also having the right equipment. Welfare is also having the right facility. But I think if we want to be honest with Nigerian sports, you have to peel it down to its very core, the fundamentals. And the fundamentals in Nigeria is the fact that most of the administrators are really very, very, very inept, and that's to say the least. Second, if you have a sport facility or sports history, as Nigeria has, and if you actually honor and respect those who have come before the current players or athletes in vogue, then you're going to have other people who want to emulate the success of others. But if you keep disrespecting those who have performed well for Nigeria, and those who are yet to come see that, they have no reason to continue, or they're really, really retarded from proceeding forward. When you talk about sport in Nigeria, I think, as you probably heard, the D Tigers, which I was very sad for them, but I'm very glad they performed as best as they could. The bad part of that system is the fact that they didn't arrive till Friday. I don't care if you're going to Ghana, which is next door, or you're going to France. you have to make preparation to arrive as early as you possibly can, not only to get acclimatized to the country where you're playing, also to get familiarized with the stadium or stadia that you're going to play in, and the wind condition, the tunnel, where you can shoot better shots from, where you can play better defense from. That's not any different from tennis or from soccer. All sports are really fundamentally the same. They play on a facility or on a premise. The second part of the sport is really psychology. You have to know what your opponents are doing. And in the case of Nigeria, I don't think they spend enough time to really delve into the technical aspect of it. Even if you don't have good administrators, if you have good facilities for the athletes, I think they will perform. But they can perform much better if you have better administration.
Okay, Unduka, let's go back to tennis now. As someone that has played the sport to the very highest level, how can Nigeria, become a top playing, strategically, become a top echelon playing nation?
Well, I think the first thing is to go back to the grassroots of tennis. And that's why my friends, some of my friends, Tom Beam in Abuja, we've decided to start a tennis school in Abuja. We have about 25, 30 students there. If you don't start them really young, it's really difficult to make it happen. Unfortunately for myself, I didn't start playing till I was about 13 or 14, but I was really, really blessed. Within 2 years of my playing, I was further blessed by an American family that adopted me and took me to America. And that's really where my game blossomed in America. I went to high school and college in America in Houston. I've been in Houston now for about 41 years. But if you don't go back to the grassroots, starting them early, it's not going to happen. My son actually started playing tennis at 2 years old, when he was 2 years old. So if you really don't, I guess he started when he was about 6. And if you take it further, if you go into the ATP website or the WTA website, you see that most of those pros started playing between 6 and 8 years old. If you wait till they're 14, 15, you're not going to get the result that you want.
Now, you were at all the 4 Grand Slam. You played the Australian Open, the French Open, the Wimbledon, and of course the US Open from about 85 to 87, and you were ranked 20th in the world as of 1984. That's more like huge. Now, you talk about the tennis schools that you guys are going to you're opening in Abuja. Now, with that school, how much is going to help the athletes? Because when they are out of that school and they start playing competitive tennis, where do they get the support from? Because that's usually the problem. Sometimes you have very, very talented athletes, but somehow they just can't make it to the top level. You talked about the fact that you're actually adopted by an American family. That's why you make it up to that high level.
Again, I'm not sure if this forum is really encompassing enough for me to express the totality of tennis. Nevertheless, if I start in the first part, 1, you must start early. 2, you must learn the sports and the dynamics of the sports before you begin to compete. It is really a shame when I came to Nigeria about a year ago, and I think some of the players were training for the All-African Games, and I asked the top Nigerian players if he or she was aware of the dimension of the tennis court. And he said no, he didn't know. Again, I asked, did you know the acute angles of the courts and what kind of shots you play when you play offensively? He said he didn't know. I once again asked, do you know tennis is played on 3 different levels, offense, defense, and neutral? He didn't know. These are technical matters. And if you don't teach them, then you can't shift from one gear to the other. I was very blessed that when I went to America, I was taught that, and that's really what helped me. I was naturally gifted because I played tennis, I ran track and field, I played soccer, I played basketball as well as baseball. But tennis is what I loved, and being a gifted athlete is not going to make you a better player if you don't understand the dynamics and the fundamentals of the game. And in Nigeria, we don't teach that yet.
Wow. Wow, let's go back to the action when you were playing competitive tennis. Tell me, what were you doing differently and what were you doing in your own special way that gave you all the accolades you got while playing tennis?
Well, tennis became a full-time job for me. I really didn't want to play tennis as a professional. I won my first professional tennis tournament when I was in high school in America. I thought I was really, really good to play professional, but my adopted parents said, no, you have to finish your education, which thereafter I went to University of Houston. The first year I won a major tennis tournament in all of America. Yet again, I thought I was good, and my parents said, no, you're not good enough. Go back to school, there's more training. So essentially what they were trying to tell me, which I didn't understand then, but now I do, it takes about 10 years to train a professional tennis player. Any other way, you're just cutting corners and it's not going to work, it's going to come back and bite you.
Wow.
Yeah, Unduka, I just want to bring about, still on tennis, I mean, everyone is giving all the accolades to Novak Djokovic, and right now he seems to be arguably the best tennis player in the world, unarguably actually. What is it about Novak Djokovic and that makes him, such a great champion?
Well, I think Djokovic and any other athletes, we're all fundamentally the same. It's the ego that drives us. That's what makes us different from other people. If you don't have the ego to beat your opponent and to beat them badly, you're not going to succeed. We have a saying when I was in school: when you beat your opponent or when your opponent is down, don't help them to get up. Kick them while they're down, because you're going to see them again and you want him or her to know that you kicked them. So Djokovic is doing just that. When the opponents are down, he kicks them. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he's the best player, and right now we're waiting for someone else to challenge him. I think you have the younger generation. And by the way, I might digress to say, in America right now we have the #1 junior player in America is actually of Nigerian descent. My compatriot Tony Moore, his son right now, is the #1 18 and under player in America. The #1 girl in America, 16 and under, is also of Nigerian descent. And of course, you know about the other Nigerian girl who actually lives in Moscow, Russia. So some of them who have been blessed by their parents financially, I think they found ways to go out of the country and develop their talents and their wares.
Yeah. We must thank you, Unuka, for speaking to us this morning on the program. You've done good talk to sports development in Nigeria. Thank you so much.